Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to make a really basic skirt pattern. This is an A-line skirt with no darts, and I'm going to give you two modifications on this to either make it really basic and simple or slightly more complicated if you want a little bit advanced. Okay, so to begin we need our measurements file. So go ahead and hit measurements, open Seamly Me. I've already created this file, but what you would want to do is hit new. I'm going to hit open individual. So mine is A-line, no darts, and mine are already in here for me. So now, there's two different ways you can do this, depending on how complicated you want this pattern to be. So you need to make two decisions off the bat if you want a waistband on this skirt or not. Otherwise, you can just reinforce the top seam with some elastic or with some bias tape and lining. Then you need to decide if you have a specific spot on your waist that you want your skirt to sit, or if you want this pattern to be a little bit adjustable so you can make the skirt sit higher or lower. Same thing with the length. If you want the length to be a little bit adjustable and you can make the skirt longer or shorter, or if you just have a length you want it to go to. Obviously, if you just have a spot on your waist you want it to sit at, measure there. That's going to be the easier version of this pattern. If you have a specific length on this that you want it to go maybe to your knees or between your knees and your ankle, wherever, just measure to there. That's going to be an easier version of this. It'll also be easier if you do not have a waistband and just want to reinforce the top seam with either some lining, elastic, something like that. So I'll show you how to do both of those measurements. Alright, so if you want to be able to adjust how high your skirt sits on your hips on the pattern, so this will not be an adjustable skirt, but the pattern will be adjustable so that you could use this pattern to eventually make a skirt that sits higher or lower on your hips. To do that, you need your waist circumference, your high hip circumference, your hip circumference, and then your waist to your high hip, your waist to your hip, your waist leg, so your waist to your knee and your waist to your ankle. To add these in here, hit add known. We don't need anything. You can close these till you get down to G in your measurements. You need G7, G8, G9. And then in your verticals, this is H. You need H30 and H31. And then we can go down to leg, which is M. You need M13 and M14. And then just hit OK. I'll show you how to take those measurements and then you're going to add them into these files. If you know where you want your waistline to sit and you know how long you want your skirt to be, you can just use waist circumference, but make a note to yourself or edit this down here, do a custom measurement, something so it says waistline circumference. You could put that in a note somewhere to yourself, I guess. I would probably do a custom one so I don't get confused, but you want that to be your waistline circumference if you want it to sit like maybe halfway between your actual waist and your high hip. Same thing for the length, so you don't need the high hip if you know where you want your skirt to sit. Same thing with the legs. If you want an exact spot, just pick one of these or add a custom measurement up here and just say length of skirt. Okay? Again, I'll show you how to put those measurements. Once you have those measurements in, go ahead and hit save. Mine is saving because I already have it, but you're going to want to call yours A-line, no darts. That way it matches the pattern. And then you can exit out. We only need a few measurements for this pattern. I'm going to show you how to take the measurements both on yourself or for someone else. What I recommend and what I like to do is have thin pieces of elastic tied into circles. I just have a pile of them in a drawer in my sewing office, but you'll need 3 of them or 2, depending. If you don't want a waistband, you need 2, but I would recommend doing this with 3. Okay, so they're all going to be on your lower half. And what you want to do, let me find the tightest one, this one. You want one around your natural waist. So if you wiggle back to forth a little bit, it'll end up sitting on your actual natural waistline, which feels a little high for some people, but that is your actual waist. If you want, you can put this at your natural, where you want your skirt to sit, waistline if you would like to. I like to do it at my actual waistline so that I can use this measurement for other patterns as well, but either one is fine for your skirt. Then you also need one at your high hip. So this is like what people consider their natural hip line. This is right above where your bottom's going to start sticking out. So right about where, kind of like where the bottom of your t-shirts usually land, is your natural hip line, okay? So then that's your high hip. And then your regular hip is the largest part of you. So you want to find the largest part of your hips, and that is your hips. Okay, so waist, high hip, hip, or waistline, high hip, hip. So then you want to take your measurements, and I did put a form that you can print out and use in the description below. Grab your measuring tape, and for your circumferences, just go around your waist, write it down, go around your high hip and write it down, and then go around your hip. What I do like to do for my hip is that a full hip measurement should also extend to the front as far out as your stomach is. Most people have their stomachs that poke out a little bit. Even if you've got washboard abs, that might be the case, just depending on your stance. If you stand up really straight and tall, now I don't, but if I stand in my regular posture where I'm kind of leaned forward a little, I do, okay? So come out to the front where that will be and add that into your measurement. Write that down. So then the last measurements you need, and this is where the elastic comes in really, really handy, you need the measurement from your waistline to your high hip. So if you're doing this on yourself, stand up straight, feel where that is and put it on there, or look and make sure the top is there and hold it there to the elastic. And then make sure you know where that next piece of elastic is and line up your fingers on the tape. Then you can bend down and check what your number's at. If you bend over and try to look at it, it's going to be way shorter. So stand up straight, hold it where it is onto the elastic, then bend over and check what the measurement is. Same thing with the hip. Hold it onto the top of the elastic, hold it on the elastic wherever it's naturally falling, and then you can bend over and check the measurement. So our next measurement, you either are going to decide how long you want the skirt and measure to there. I'm going to take a measurement to my knee and to my ankles because then I can always make it anywhere within those values or above my knees or whatever I need to do. To do this, again, when you bend over, it's going to shorten the measuring tape. So hold it to your waist tape, and then holding it there, flatten it across your body to where it naturally falls, and hold it like on your thigh below where you'll buckle. So now if I bend over, I'm not losing all of that right there from where I bend, but it is truly on my leg, and my leg isn't bending anyway that I'm going to lose length. So then I can continue down to my knee, which is 25. From there I can continue down to my ankle, which is 41, and write both of those down. So this is just my Seamly 2D screen again. We're going to hit new, and this first piece, it's just the same front and back for this, so I'm just going to call this skirt. Mine's in inches. If you want to choose something else, go for it. Just make sure your measurements match up. Hit OK. Alright, so this red circle that always appears is our starting point. We need to start with this point at distance and angle tool, so go ahead and click that. Click your red dot, drag to the right. Doesn't matter how far you drag. Alright, up here is the length. We're going to hit this F of X button, or formula wizard. Delete everything that's up there. Oh, and you know what? I didn't add my measurements yet. Let's do that real quick. So if that happens that you get into that and there's no files in the measurements, that's just because we haven't added it. Hit measurements. We need to load an individual, and we're going to load a line, no darts. So let's try that again. Red dot to the right, F of X, and look at all of our measurements are there now. Delete that. Alright, we're going to go with waist circumference. I'm going to show you how to make the one that eventually we can modify this pattern. If you want to do the easier one, where you just know where your skirt is going to sit on your waist, this is where you click waistline. So double click it to get it to show up here. We want to divide that by 4. Okay? Our angle needs to be 0 degrees to come straight to the right, and hit OK. I'm going to hit zoom fit best so I can see this a little better, and then I'm going to even zoom out a little bit more. So next I need to go down to my high hip. If you are putting yours at your neck or where you want it to sit and you do not want a waistband, you can skip this step. So we're going to click that point at distance and angle, click on that initial red circle at A, come straight down. Our length, we're going to hit f of x, delete that, and we are going to go waist to high hip. Double click it so it shows up. Okay, our angle is 270 degrees, okay. Alright, again, if you don't want a waistband and you don't want to be able to move how high or low the waist is sitting, skip this step as well. So now point at distance and angle, grab A2, come straight to the right, and the length, f of x, delete that, is going to be the high hip circumference, double click it, divided by 4. Hit OK. Angle is 0. Okay. We always divide these circumferences by 4 because right now I'm only looking at either the front or back of this pattern, and I'm only looking at half of it. You can mirror it to the other side if you want, but we always start in the center of our body and work our way out. Our bodies are obviously very curved, and your pattern's going to sit the best if you start in the center of your body and work your way out. Alright, so now everybody needs to do this step whether you want a waistband or adjustable or not. Go back to that point at distance and angle and go back to your starting point. Come straight down. Your length is now going to be your waist to your hip, or your waistline to your hip. So waist to hip, double click that. Okay, your angle needs to be 270. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit again. And then we're going to grab the same point. We're going to work with this most of the pattern. Come straight to the right. Our length this time is going to be the hip circumference divided by 4. Okay, our angle is 0. Okay. Alright, we're starting to get a pattern. I'm just going to hit save. If you haven't already done this, go ahead and hit save. And mine, let's see, I'm going to say A-line, no darts, save. There you go. That way our pattern, again, matches exactly to the measurements file. That way when we're pulling stuff back up in the future, it's really easy to find them. Sorry, my dog is meowing at me in the corner. He lost his toy is stuck under the couch. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and keep going. So now here, if you want a waistband, actually let's go down to the hemline first before we get that. That way everybody can get everything on this part done. So go ahead and once again hit this point at distance and angle, grab your starting point, come straight down, angle's 270, the length, delete what's in there. We will go waist to knee, hit OK, OK. I'm going to zoom fit best, zoom out a little, same point. Start at your waist, your starter point, come straight down, angle is 270, length is now going to be waist to ankle. Okay? Okay, so I'm just zooming in a little bit closer on this so that I can see this whole waist happenings a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is on this line button, I am going to, so this line section, this is just line between points. I'm going to connect my waist to my high hip. If you have your waistline instead of your high waist, that's fine. Just connect that to your high hip. We need an angle here to start off of. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is actually curve out the waistline. We do not want this squared off from our stomach like this. We actually need it to curve a little bit. And that's just to fit our natural curves of our body. So whether you want a waistband or not, or however you're doing this, you need to do this part. Depending on where you want your waist to sit, so you need to pick a point initially for this pattern. You can always change it. So I am going to go back to point, and I'm going to pick point at distance along line. If yours is your waistline instead of your natural waist, don't do this. If you have your natural waist up here, if you want the skirt at your natural waist, you are more than welcome to. I want mine, let's go ahead and say 1.5 inches lower. So let me show you that again. Go ahead and grab the point at distance along line, start at the top at the waist, go down to the high hip, and the length I'm going to put 1.5 inches, and then hit OK. So this is now 1.5 inches below my waist, but the nice thing about this is that honestly your natural waist to your high hip is kind of just a straight line, which is why this works. Okay, so this is where I actually want my waistband to be. I'm going to grab this right angle tool. If I can get it to hover to tell you what it's called. No, it's not going to tell me. Alright, we're in point. We're in the second row, the one on the left. Alright, oh, point along perpendicular. There we go. So grab your initial point, which is either your waistline, if you measured at your waistline, or this point that you decided is where you want it to sit. Grab that and bring it up to your actual waistline. Okay. For the length, I really only need this to be like 2 or 3 inches is totally fine. Let's say 2 inches. There we go. Perfect. Because again, we just need a line that's 90 degrees off of this line. Okay? So if that was your waistline that you put in, and you're saying, I don't have this point up here to... All you're going to do is grab this point at distance and angle, grab your waistline, and just bring it up. The length, just say like 2 inches, and then your angle down here, instead of typing something, hit F of X, delete that. We're going to do the angle of the line, and we need A3 to A1, which is probably actually A1 to A3. Yep. We need it to be opposite that though. So we'll say plus 180 degrees. There you go. Now you have a taller one you can grab. Alright, if you don't need to do that, obviously don't. But that's how you do it if this is your waistline and you need to grab that point for your 90-degree angle. Alright, anyways, so now we have that. All we're going to do is create a waistline off of this. So I'm going to grab this squaring off tool. And we are going to start at A and then to that lower point, and I'm just going to go down here to the curve section, and I want this 4-point curve. You want to go clockwise, so I'm going to grab the one straight across from where I lowered that waistband at the angle to. I'm going to grab that. And then this bottom point that's 2 inches, I'm going to click that twice. 1, 2 clicks. And then end here. And now we have a curved waistband. Ta-da! Not so bad. If you end up deciding you want that to be more of a curve, all you have to do is add additional length onto that, and it'll curve it a little bit more for you. Alright, if you don't want a waistband, you do not need to do this next portion of this. You only needed that waist curve, and then we can move on. If you want a waistband, you need to decide how wide you want your waistband to be. So I'm going to do a 2-inch waistband. That's kind of standard, is like 1.5 to 2 inches. So I'm going to go back to point, and this right angle tool, but first I'm going to go down 2 inches. So point at distance along line, start at my waistline, or where I decided my waistline is going to be, come down to your high hip. Length, I'm going to say 2 inches, okay, if you want a 2-inch waistband. And then I'm going to do the right angle thing again, so point along perpendicular, grab the bottom of that waistband up to the waistband above it. Length, I am going to make my length so that I can change how curved this is if I want. I want it to be exactly that length. So I'm going to hit F of X, length of lines, A8 to A9. If you don't want to search through this, just go A8, and there it is. Double click, hit OK, hit OK, and now these are the exact same length. So if I click on this and I decide, actually I do only want that to be 2 inches, all of it moves. This will save you a lot of headache in the future. If you ever come in and decide to edit this, which with pattern making we always come back and edit. It's okay to come back and edit. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. That's one of the beautiful things of making your own patterns, is that we get to do so much editing and make them perfect exactly how we want them. Alright, so as you can see, we're starting to see a little bit of a waistband. I am going to again grab this point at distance along line, start at the top of my waistline or waistband, come down to the high hips. Again, I want this the exact same width as that, so I'm going to hit F of X, and this time I want A8 to A11, so length of line right here, A8 to A11, right there. Double click it, okay, okay, bam. Again, if I ever decide instead of 2-inch skirt or waistband, I want 1.5, or maybe I have really thick elastic and I want 3 inches, it'll change the whole waistband for me. All right, now we just need to connect this curve. Again, we go counterclockwise. So on the curve, and this one, actually it's going to be weird either way we do it, and I'll show you how to fix it in the end. Hit curve, our 4-point curve tool. Start on this one on the corner at the bottom of the waistband. Mine's A13. Click it once, 2 times in the middle, 2 clicks, and then click on the edge. There we go. Well, we need to connect the waist down and start creating the bottom of the skirt. We do not just want to connect these lines. There are not any darts in this skirt. And if you just connect this to your hip, your largest part, it's going to be skin tight and it'll pull on every lump or bump or curve you have and not in a flattering way. If you want to make this out of a really stretchy fabric and have it really skin tight, hip hugging, maybe you could do this at that point and just connect them, and that would probably be okay. It's not going to be super flattering, but if that's what you're going for, is skin tight, once again, you need to use a stretch fabric if you're going to just connect those lines. So go for it. However, that is not what I want to show you in this. So what we want to do is add some width to this hip measurement. Even just a couple inches will make the skirt just kind of flow over the hips in a really flattering way. It'll fall off of any curves or lumps or bumps instead of grabbing onto them. So what I do is decide how flowy I want the A-line skirt to be at my biggest part, which is my hips. So I want at least 3 inches of ease on each side when there's no darts to help it sit really nice. And also I think it's just a pretty A-line skirt if it has a little bit of flow to it. Movement is always beautiful in a skirt. If you have a smaller derriere, less than 3 inches is probably okay. If you are rather blessed on the back side, you may want to add even more than 3 inches. This is all just personal preference at this point on how flowy you want the skirt to be. You can make the skirt as full or as tight as you want. Just again, remember, if you want a true A-line skirt with no I want to say pleats, but it's not pleats. If you don't want any darts and you want a true A-line skirt, you have to add something, and I would never go less than 1 inch. So I'm going to add 2 to 3 inches on mine. So this is my hip measurement. If these numbers get confusing to you, you can actually relabel this as hip if you want, and it'll say hip. I'm going to click on that point label. You just change it there. I'm going to undo that though, so mine's still A5. Okay, so I'm going to do this. And I'm going to, if you click on any point in your tool options on the right, you can do stuff with it. If your tool options isn't showing up, you need to go to I gotta think. In pattern piece, there we go. You need to click on tool options and group, and all of that stuff will show up or disappear. If you can't figure that out, just right click on it and hit options, and this screen comes back up if you prefer that. Alright, so click on A5. Here is our hip formula. I'm not going to change that. I'm just going to hit plus 3 inches. Ta-da! Now I have a flowier skirt. It's that easy. Okay, you can add as much or as little as you want. Probably don't want to go less than 1 inch. Really, really don't want to go less than 1 inch. I'm going to add 3 so this has some nice flow to it. Okay, so now we actually are going to start connecting things. So my waistband, the bottom of my waistband, if you have a waistband, is where we're going to start. If you don't have a waistband, you are going to start at your waistline. Okay, so your bottomest part of that waist curve, you are going to actually start connecting lines. So hit line. And then you want to hit line between points. Start at the waistband bottom or waistline and come out to the hip and just connect them. Okay? Alright, so now we need to make that the length of the skirt that we want. So I am going to zoom out quite a ways. And actually, I'm going to make this a little less flowy just so it's easier to keep in screen. No, you know what? I'm going to leave it. Okay, so we zoom out a little bit. So now we need to make this line, instead of being the length of our hip, we need that line to be like the length of our waist to knee. So we have to do a couple things here. First off, I'm going to scroll in. If you have a waistband, or if it's lower than your waist, I need to know the length of that whole section, because I don't want this length to be actually my waist to my knee. I need it to be my waist to my knee minus all of this that I lowered the waistline by. Otherwise, my skirt's going to end up that much longer than I intend it to be. So what I'm going to do is going to go to, stay on line, and to make this easy on myself, line between points, and I'm just going to connect A1, the highest part of my hip that I have on here from my initial. So this is whatever line you measured down from for your knee. So if this is your actual waist or your waistline, if that's where you measured from there down to your knee to get that measurement, that's the point you need to start at. And then I'm going to come to the bottom of my waistline so that I know how much I need to take out of the waist to knee measurement. All right, now we can go to point and point at distance and angle. Start at the bottom of the curve and come down. Now I want my angle to be exact. So let's start at we'll go top to bottom. So for my length, I'm going to hit that f of x. I'm going to delete what's in there. Alright, so I want my waist to my knee. Double click it. And then I click up here so I can edit this formula. I'm going to hit minus. And I want to subtract that length. So length of line, and I want A1 to A11. I'm going to type in A11 so that I can find A1 to A11 easier. Double click it. So now I have my waist to knee minus this distance. Hit OK. My angle, I'm not going to leave it like that. Even though I drew it right on the line, I want this to be exact. I'm going to hit f of x, delete that, angle of line, and I want the angle of A11 to A5, the line that's actually there. So I'm just going to type in A5, A11 to A5, double click that, and that's now my angle. That way if I change, here I'm going to hit OK, and there we go. The reason you want these to be exact and use the lines to put into the formula is because if I go back and change this skirt at all, I want it to be really easy to change. If I don't want this to be 3 inches out and only want it to be 2 inches out, that whole line comes with. If I, when I created this line, had just drawn it right on the line, when I change the distance of this line, which I'm actually going to be using, would have stayed out here instead of coming in and getting moved around. I am just going to show you what will happen if we take some shortcuts on this. So let's go ahead and draw that line one more time. I'm just going to do the knee one, and I'm going to draw it exactly on top of that line. Right there. Beautiful. Alright, let me do this length real quick. So it looks like it's exactly on there, okay? But I'm going to go back to my hip measurement now, and I am going to change that to 2. So look what happens. So this one stays out there, and my pattern's not adjusting. Even though I adjust this, this just stays where it is. So in the future, I won't be able to actually mess with this at all. So again, if you're going to do digital pattern making, use all these tools as your friend to make the future so much easier to use these patterns, to make new patterns off of. The more little things we add in now, the better this pattern is for the future. I'm going to hit that save button just to give me peace of mind. Okay, so now we need to actually do the same thing on this side, because this is no longer, actually, you know, I am going to leave that, because I already subtracted it from the other side. So we're solid. We're good. Yep, we're good. I had to think about that for a second. Okay. If you just want to do your, if you just decided a length that you want the skirt to be and didn't do your knee and ankle, you would do the same thing, that you would just come down from your waist down. And if you added a waistband, so instead of your measurement being, you know, waist to knee, just grab your skirt length that you added in, and if you added a waistband, make sure you subtract that waistband length, same as we did on the other one. Okay, Now we need to add down to the ankle in case I want this to be an ankle length skirt in the future. Again, do everything now and then we can use this pattern for a million different skirts. Okay, so point at distance and ankle, start at that same point. It's the bottom of the waistband. Come down. Alright, so we're going to do that same thing. So our length, delete that, and we want our waist to ankle minus length of line. I'm going to type in A11 so I can find it faster. A1 to A11. Okay. Angle, click that F of X, delete that. Angle of line, and it's A11 to A5. And there we go. There we go. Let's zoom fit fast. One additional thing you could do, if you would like, you can figure out the difference between your front hip measurement and your back hip measurement. And you could do a second line out here and add that measurement in so that the back of the skirt has more space to flow around your rear than the front. You don't have to, but if you have a larger rear, it's probably a good idea so that the skirt doesn't pull. Otherwise, make sure you add a lot to the front and the back so that you just can't tell that there is more pulling in the back. Alright, so all we have to do at this point is connect the bottom of the skirt in the curves. So we actually have to add just a smidge of length in here, because technically when we dropped this, it's sitting lower in the front, which means this length is now shorter. So we got to go to point, and I am going to use this squaring off. It is, it'll tell me what it's called for you. Point from X and Y have two other points. So in the right column, fourth down. Alright, so grab the top of the waistline or waistband first, and then come over on the right where the waistband hits again. I'll zoom in on this so you can see better. Alright, so the first point is the top of the waistband or waistline if you don't have a waistband. Over to this top of the waistline, okay? And I just need to know that amount because I need to add it onto the bottom. So on this line part, I'm just going to line between points, top to bottom, A16 to A10. I'm just going to remember my number, zoom out a little bit, come back down here to the knee, and this is point at distance along line, drag it down, the length I want to be A16 to A10. I'm going to copy that real quick. Okay, so now that's my new knee length. And then I have to do the same thing on the ankle. So I'm going to grab that point, come straight down with my point at distance and angle. I'm going to paste the same thing I grabbed from the other one, or you can go to F of X and hit the line again. And the angle needs to be 270. Okay, alright. So now that fixes our length issue. Now I need to curve it out. So I do not have a perfect way of doing this. The best way I have figured out is to add a lot of weird points down here. So first off, I'm going to square off the bottom of the skirt. So point from X and Y, I have two other points. I'm going to start at the outside point and square off with the new bottom of the skirt. Okay, so now I have this corner point that squares them off. Now, I'm going to, on the bottom of this point, there's this one that makes it halfway, midpoint between 2 points. I'm going to click that. I'm going to go halfway between those points and just hit OK or hit Enter on your keyboard. We need to do that again. So the point, we need halfway, go halfway between those 2 points now, and then do it again on this side, halfway between those 2 points, and then from this halfway, I need halfway between there and that curve, and hit OK. So now I hit the curve, grab our 4-point curve tool, start on this side, grab that midpoint, but then grab the midpoint to the next one, and grab that one. And that is the nicest curve I can figure out how to make on the computer. This is one of those that you might have to adjust it a little bit and make it how you like it, but this is a very nice, pretty much 90-degree angle, and that's pretty much a 90-degree angle, that it's that's a nice curve off of that. We need to do the same thing with the bottom of the skirt now. I'm going to zoom out just a touch. Hopefully you can still see this okay. Okay, so once again, go into your points, and first we're going to square those off. So this point from X and Y, this square off looking thing, you grab from the outside, and then at the bottom, the new bottom. Okay, now this midway between 2 points, across those 2 bottom points, and then we are going to have both sides of that. Okay, and then that halved part on the right, halve that up to the curve, hit this curve, we're in the curve section, 4-point curve tool, outside, midpoint closest to the outside, outside, and there we go, a nice curve. Alright, so this is your skirt at this point. All we have to do is add it into the details. I'm going to link the video explaining how to really mess around in details and printing and all of that. But for this one, I'm just going to show you one thing. Go down to detail here. This is where we add in pattern pieces, hit workpiece tool. I'm going to start with the waistband, so let me just scroll in. Okay, so the waistband, we have to click these in a counterclockwise direction, but the waistband is both the bottom of the waistband and the top of the skirt, so it's just going to turn out weird, so I'm going to show you how to fix it. Start at the top, click that point, click the curve. You can click this corner point if you want, and the corner point, sometimes it helps. Click the curve again. I'm going to click that. That curve is still not showing up. I'm going to click it again. You have to click it until it does something. It's okay that it's doing that. Hit enter. Okay, the problem here is that the top of my skirt I made going clockwise for the skirt, which means it's going counterclockwise for the waistband. So the point is A13 to A11. First off, I need the curve to be before this point. So I'm going to grab it and just drag it up. Okay? Now it's going the wrong direction, so I need to right click it and hit reverse. And there we go. Now the curve's going the right direction. Then just hit OK. I'm going to hit save, and if I go into details, zoom vest fit, my waistband is now in there. I'm going to do the same thing with the skirt. Let's just go ahead and add it. Let's do the knee length one, just for kicks and giggles. Grab this. Okay, I'm going to grab that waistband measurement. If you want, you can click the outside points. You don't necessarily have to. Click that curve. Didn't work. I'm going to click it again. Nothing's happening. Pretty sure I did it in the wrong direction. That's okay. I'm going to click the outside point. I'm going to click it again. There, something happened. It's weird. Hit enter. Again, I need it before that point because the curve comes before that point if I'm going clockwise. Grab it, drag it up. It's still not curved right. That is how the pattern will look in your pattern tool, so you have to fix this on this screen. Right click it, reverse, now it's working. Hit OK. Let's go into details, zoom fit best, and there is our skirt. You can do that with the whole thing. Again, the next video is going to show you how to add all your seam allowances and things. Make sure for this pattern, this is a cut on a fold, so especially the front of the skirt, do not add any seam allowance on this portion. Do not add any seam allowance on the waistband. What I would do is have a front and waistband at this front and back waistband and skirt at this point, because I need a zipper in this. This is on my waist. There's no way I can just pull that over my hips. There's no way anyone can just pull that over their hips. You're going to need a zipper in the back of this. So go back to draw and do the waistband twice and do the skirt twice. That way, let me get this, I can show you. Enter, drag that. Oop, I did add it twice. I'm just going to delete this one because it's already up here. Reverse, okay. So it will just keep showing up every time you add it. So now one of these, I can put seam allowance the whole way around so that I can add a zipper on this one side and actually cut it as 2 pieces. And then one of them I can put no seam allowance on this side so that I can cut on the fold. And I would do the same thing again with the skirt. Alright, I will link the next video of how to add all your seam allowances, how to add notes onto it, how to really mess with this before you print it, and then as well as how to actually print this into a PDF you can print out of your printer. I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure to like and subscribe so you can see more videos and new ideas to sew with. Bye.